What is a good weakness to mention on a job interview? When I was graduating college, I got interview tips from my dad, who was heavily involved in the hiring process at his company for his department. His advice on this one, which I've used ever since and has gone great, was, the whole say a weakness that's actually a positive has been done to death and is such common knowledge that it's no longer a clever trick and is now seen as avoiding the question. People want to see some self-awareness. Obviously don't bring something absolutely terrible up, but mention a real flaw and most importantly what you've done to address or work with it. For example, the one I tend to use is that I can be forgetful, so I now keep multiple sets of calendars, reminders, notes, etc. to cover as much as possible. Why do you want to work here? I'd say my greatest weakness is listening. What's your greatest weakness? Finishing other people's sentences. Sandwiches. That's what I was gonna say. What is your greatest weakness? Probably that I have no strengths. Those big blue eyes of yours. My eyes are brown. And my second greatest weakness would probably be observational skills, I guess. I have a hard time saying no, but you just did. I have a hard time saying the N-word. Mrs. Obama, be ready to maybe get down. Not if I have anything to say about it, and I do. I'm gonna say the N-word. If you are changing industries, your biggest weakness is not knowing the industry yet. If you are younger, say inexperience, anything to show your willingness to learn and develop. I got my current job after I said this. The interviewer asked me if I had any questions or concerns about the position. I said, I'm a quick and eager learner, but I'll be honest, I have absolutely no experience in this industry, so training me will need to be from the ground up. Will that be an issue? For my current job, I said that I had a hard time sharing my ideas with new groups. I'm terrible at interviews. I'm bad at interviews. I guess I don't do them very often. I have typically stayed at previous jobs for a long time. Actual weakness, taking on jobs by myself, not taking time to train other people to do them. In the end, I'm usually the guy and find myself feeling burnt out. Probably could be worded better at an interview, but this could sound like you're a go-getter. It might also encourage your employer to find opportunities for you to train other people to do things you particularly don't like doing. Training people is a lot of work with little reward, and if things go south you can get shit on you didn't train them on this. I got burnt out training because you work hard to train them and they end up being flakes and not listening or listening to the wrong person. In my head I'm like, that's not how it's done. I also don't like bombarding new hires with info, so I get tight-lipped when someone that has been working for a while says something incorrect. It's rough. I work in healthcare and always say not speaking Spanish, and odds are the interviewer is also not fluent in Spanish, so it comes across as not really a weakness. Win-win. I've heard this is the best answer, and to follow it up with something like, but I'm still trying to improve that language. Pewter. Weak against fire and sharp objects. Underrated comment. We'd make pretty bad Pokemon. Weak to fire, water, electricity, grass, ice, rocks, the ground, steel, fighting, poison, flying, falling. If dragons, fairies, ghosts, and psychics existed, we'd probably be weak to them too. Some people are even additionally weak to bugs in the dark. There's nothing that we are actually good at. Depends on the position, but I will sometimes say that I have trouble delegating when I know I can perform a task well. I'd rather just do it myself and know that everything will be done correctly. Edit. Thank you for the various precious metals. I realize this advice can backfire. That's why I said sometimes. There is also a way to phrase this that makes you sound better. I'm the same way. I'd be afraid to say this in an interview though, because it could be interpreted as not a team player. I wouldn't say I'm not a team player, but I do have a hard time working with a lazy team that does shitty work. Frame it in terms of something you're looking to improve. Well, at my last performance evaluation I received some constructive criticism regarding X, so since then I've been doing Y and Z to focus on improving in that regard. Honestly though, if an interviewer asks you that ridiculous cliched question, either they have no idea what they are doing and or don't give a shit, or they aren't looking for an answer but just want to see how you respond to being pushed. They aren't looking for an answer but just want to see how you respond to being pushed. This is exactly it. There are no right answers, but there are certainly wrong answers. I once got a job partly because of my honest answer to this. I need to know why I'm doing what I'm doing. I don't like being told to do something without an end game in mind, without knowing the reasoning behind it. When I work, I need something to aim at. Some employers don't like this because they like their employees to be cogs in a machine they control. I don't like those jobs and I don't want them. The place I was applying to was not that kind of workplace, and they liked my answer. Ended up being a great job where my boss valued my input and trusted me to take the reins on a variety of tasks. Being vague. Can you elaborate? Yeah. Edit. Wow. Was having a not so cool day but got here to see I got my first gold. Thanks stranger. Now to figure out what it does. Probably. That is certainly something I could look into for you. Figure out a skill that's not required for the job you are applying for, but is required for the job. 2 promotions above that job. Then say it's your big weakness but that also you are looking to learn and develop that skill from people who are strong at it. Alternatively, if you're far enough along in your career that you have had several promotions and have reports/people to delegate to, you can say you were never as good as other people at skill someone below your job level must do, but that's why you've learned to delegate it. Terrible handwriting is my biggest weakness. How so? You'll never know what I wrote down. It looks like a blind man wrote. Edit. And thank you everyone who wished me a happy cake day. I keep replying. And whatnot but I'm about to go to work. So here is one big thank you. Also thanks for making it feel like I'm not alone on the bad handwriting thing. I've always been embarrassed about it but I appreciate you all with horrid handwriting. I don't feel so alone. This is mine. I have the penmanship of a doctor, and clearly this isn't a hospital. I hate this interview question. I interview candidates every few months. This is a totally useless question. The field I interview for usually has passionate people, so instead I ask of all the aspects of doing job, which part of the process do you enjoy the most? Nobody is nervous about this question. Gives me some insight into what they want to be working on, where they think they are strongest, and what would make them happy and productive versus bored. I interviewed a girl once and she said honestly, cake, I can never say no to it. She was so genuine and the answer struck us all as honestly hilarious. We hate those corporate interview questions too. It was more about finding someone who could answer questions like a real person and had some sort of personality show through. It's amazing how many people just couldn't answer certain questions, as though they were so nervous to get it wrong they froze up. In another interview, my boss asked a candidate, tell me about a time you screwed up at work. She thought for a while and said, gosh, I'm sorry. There are certainly times, but there's nothing major that comes to mind at the moment. I'll think on it while we do other questions. That's what we wanted as interviewers, not a perfect answer, just people that seemed comfortable and normal. LOL. I was asked this during an interview with Uber and I was completely caught off guard. I ended up fumbling and saying something along the lines of I cannot ride a unicycle, for which I immediately regretted. I would have burst out laughing at that if I was interviewing you. No kidding, I can appreciate a little humor during the interview. Just don't try to pull the same stunt on every question. My biggest weakness is that sometimes in interviews, I have absolutely no idea how to answer some of the questions. Edit. Thanks for popping my gold cherry stranger. What is your biggest weakness? Interpreting the semantics of a question while ignoring the pragmatics. Could you give an example? Yes. Eczema. You got eczema. My weakness is I can get too focused on a task trying to perfect it, and waste time trying to get a 96 to a 97 when 90 is acceptable. On the blueprints we get they say there is a plus minus tolerance of 3mm for my measurements. That is way too huge, and I insist on trying to get it down to at least 1mm. I often say something similar, like I get too focused on one particular problem, and sometimes have to just step back and leave it be for a while, to drive home the point. Just keep going on and on with the answer and never stop. As someone who interviews hundreds of people each year, this question stumps almost every person asked. The worst responses are, I have trouble being on time. I'm argumentative. I don't get along with. I also don't think disguising strengths as weaknesses is a good idea either. The best response I think I have heard besides not being able to ride a unicycle is, I make mistakes, but I'm only human. I'm sure I will make some mistakes along the way, learning the ins and outs of this position. But as soon as I know I made a mistake, I try to fix it immediately and make sure it doesn't happen again. Just my 2 cents. One of my actual weaknesses, when I get nervous/excited, I tend to speak really fast and breathlessly. This can actually have a negative influence on my job as I work in healthcare and have to respond/communicate during emergencies. For my next interview, I will bring this up and say I have discovered that taking a second to collect myself and take a deep breath seems to calm my nerves and allow me to do/say what is needed in a more collected manner. Honesty. I don't think honesty is a weakness. I don't give a fuck what you think. I need to say this in an interview before I die. Plot twist. You get hired for the job as a geriatric. I printed out a card that says sometimes I over-prepare and handed it to them when they asked it. I got the job, but did you laminate it? I have absolutely no patience for office politics, conspiracies, bullying, micromanagement, or corporate cheerleading. I want to work somewhere friendly and open and fair, where I can treat colleagues as equals and be pretty much left to do my job in return. I can do it extremely well. Plot twist. The type of company that still asks this question is also likely to have high levels of micromanaging, bullying, and office politics. My big dick is always getting caught on things and knocking things, so dishonesty is your biggest weakness. If you are a shy, quiet person like myself, mention it. I'll let them know upfront that I'm a naturally quiet person, especially around new people, and it sometimes comes off the wrong way. People tend to think I'm in a bad mood, or have a rude personality, or just don't like them. Then when they get to know me they do a 180. So I'll let them know from the beginning that I'm quiet, but it doesn't mean I'm in a bad mood or don't like them or anything. I just don't talk much until I get to know people. I think this is related. For my current job's interview, near the end, my now manager opened up the laptop, opened Excel and asked me to do some equations there. Now, I didn't know any Excel at the time, even though the job description required it. I looked a little embarrassed at him and then told him, okay, please bear with me. Then I minimized Excel, opened browser, Google, how to multiply Excel equation. I sneak peek at him while I'm doing this and he's smiling. Then, I followed the instructions and completed the task. He was like, you got the job, buddy. Kryptonite. Radiation. I work too hard, I care too much, and sometimes I can be too invested in my job. Alpha male, jackhammer, merciless, insatiable. You have been visited by the smart studying doggo. You'll be blessed with good grades only if you subscribe to Comment Awards and like the video. PG! On top, food chain, won't stop, new game, hot box that blue haze, one lock, 2 chains, no bras, 2 babes, mic drop, new stage, lights in my rear view, 5 cops, pool race, faster than a Tesla, they say I'm exhausted.